Today is September 25th. We're coming up on our first frost here in Zone 6B in mid-October. So we're getting close to time to winterize the hives. And for those who've watched the previous videos, you know some of our hives have been in a little bit of difficult situation. Our colonies in this green hive here, we have the cemetery swarm and then also a colony that was done from a split off of our mother colony, and at last inspection they were both very short on resources, so not much of anything for them to feed on. So we've been feeding and hopefully they have built up some resources. We'll see how they are. I'm going to start by inspecting the cemetery swarm, which some of you might have seen the videos on the previous inspections with them and how they were doing. We'll get in there and see how that colony is doing, as well as the one right next to them, which was from a split. I have noticed a little bit of coming and going from this hive lately, but not a lot of traffic. So that is a little bit concerning. The split, the other colony from the split, I've seen a lot more traffic at the entrance there. So looking at this first frame, we've got, this is a frame that I had moved from the other end to this end. They had just barely started building it out. And on this side, that's away from the center of the colony, they really haven't done any more in terms of building on it. Looks like they might have added a little more comb in the middle, but other than that, not a whole lot. So you can see there, this is what I'm talking about. They've added a little bit of comb right here, little bit slightly built out on this side, but you know, not a whole lot else going on, which they really should be filling this up as a honey frame by now, so a little bit of concern there. The next frame they've got built out better, and they've actually been building down, so that's looking a little better. We'll see what they have in it. So here they've got this built out, and they have nectar up in there. So that's good. They're filling this out as a honey frame, and that is good. On the other side, there's a little bit of capped brood right in the middle there, and some pollen over here, and then the rest of this they have nectar populated in there. So that's good, and I see that the feeding has gained some benefit because these bees, their combs were built out real sparsely before. So that's a really nice thing to see that they're getting some work done there. So this third one, I'm going to pull this out and show, but initially what I'm seeing on here is really good. In the last inspection we saw some capped brood that was emerging, and at that inspection I was afraid I had a failed queen because I saw no young brood and no larvae. Now on this next frame, after I've been feeding these bees, I'm seeing a lot of capped brood on here, so this is really nice to see. I'm not seeing any larvae in here, and that's okay. This time of year, getting this close to winter, the bees that are hatching out will be more the winter bees. There's not much foraging going on right now, and so they need to be filling, you know, storing up honey to survive over winter. And that's exactly what's happening here. We've got a lot of capped brood on that frame, but in the middle, those cells that you see are empty. They're filling those with nectar. So they're already, you know, as those cells empty out, they're going back, storing up resources, and getting prepared for winter. They've got nectar along the top here, which they didn't have last time I inspected. So that's good. They also have nectar going down around the bottom, so they're kind of putting nectar wherever they can. But they're going to need it. Again, on this top, they've got nectar, basically a ring of nectar all along around that capped brood, and then nectar in those cells where the bees have emerged, or maybe they were just empty cells. But so we got some capped brood on there. We got a new generation of bees, and we've got nectar resources stored up, which will become capped honey once they dry it out. So that's nice. This next frame is also more built out than it was before. I don't see as much brood on here, but from this angle, there's a few bees covering it, so we'll see what's going on. So this is more similar to what we saw before with a small brood area, but that's all right. They got some capped brood there. They've got nectar across the top and then a little bit down the side here. I do see some larvae in there, so it's not all capped brood. They've got some very young bees coming up. And then on this side, similar situation, a small brood area and then nectar around there. So so we're doing all right there. You know, and it'd be nice if they had a full frame built out, but this was a late swarm, and best we can do is what we can do. And this final frame, not a lot happening here. They've got a little comb built out, less comb on this back side. And yeah, so it's just built out a little bit. They've already started putting a little nectar down in some of those cells. So that's not bad, but we'll keep feeding them so they can get that filled out. So I have to say I'm encouraged by this inspection. At the last inspection, my prognosis for this hive was that they would not be able to survive through winter in the state that they were in. And now they have more comb built, they have more nectar stored up. They don't have it capped as honey yet, but they've got time to get that dried out. I'm going to continue feeding with 2-to-1 sugar syrup. And I will say ideally I would feed 1-to-1-to-1 water, sugar, honey. But I learned my lesson. For those who watched my robbery video, if you haven't watched that, go back and check that out. I talk a little bit about the robbing that happened when I fed these bees last time. And I think part of that robbing was in large part because I was including honey in the food and putting that honey in, that feeder in the hive. And the smell of that honey was drawing in bees from other colonies and starting robbing. So I'm starting to feed just 2-to-1 sugar. That 2-to-1 sugar syrup, they will take that and use that to store up food for winter. So they will also use it to build out some more comb. So best we can do right now is continue feeding them, and hopefully they will do their thing and continue building out comb and store up nectar. So pretty happy about where they're at. They could be in a better place, but I think their survival chances for winter are much better now than what they were. So let's move on to the next colony. Now this colony, I've seen much more activity at the entrance lately. So, you know, when I do external feeding, I'll see this hive just going crazy, bees in and out to get there. Whereas the other one hasn't been as much activity, but they've obviously been, if not going to the external feeder, at least they've been making good use of the internal feeder. So they got this frame built out fairly well, storing up some pollen and some nectar in there. They got, it's interesting, a little capped honey at the top, and don't know if you can tell on camera there, but that top is barely built out on the frame. So some of these cells are just a fraction of an inch, but there's a reason, and I'll show you when we see the next frame. But otherwise, they're storing up nectar in there. This is going to be a honey frame, and then on the other side, it's much nicer, much more even. They got the cells more even and got nectar in a lot of these cells. So a couple of them capped up already at the top there. So That's looking pretty good, building off that honey frame. Now on the next frame, we'll see the reason why the top of this one was not built out much. That's a pretty nice looking frame. And I'm seeing as I look at this, they've got cap brood down there towards the middle and the bottom. There's some larvae down there, and some larvae kind of scattered around on this actually. And then they're filling up cells with nectar, top and bottom. You can see at the top they've got some capped honey there, and just below that there's a section of cells that are nearly full, so those will be capped up soon. Now on this side, they have taken that comb and built it out. I don't know how well that'll show here. You can kind of see there how much they built out the comb at the top. So because it bulges out on that next frame to it, they couldn't build out as much, or they would have lost their space to work. So those are some pretty deep cells there, and they are full of nectar. So that is great, because that's what the bees are going to need as their cluster moves up in the winter. Now they haven't built all the way to the bottom of the frame yet. Again, it'd be better if they had a full frame to winter on, but they'll do what they can, and I think the bees will do all right. Now this is really interesting. I'm going to try to get video. I got a bee that's emerging right now. So we got a little bee there right in the center of the frame. I'm kind of tilting the camera here to match the frame, but she is coming out right now. Is that bee going to help her? Yeah. It's interesting, these other bees keep kind of coming by and checking on her. She's got to make her way out there. Doesn't quite have the space yet. So I'll make the opening a little bit bigger. Alright, well this may take a while. That's kind of cool to catch a bee in the act of emerging there. Oh, here, is she going to make it out? Kind of pushing. The bees keep running over. That seems rude. We'll let her do her thing. But they've got good honey stores there. Got new bees coming out, and filling up space with nectar. So that's good. Much better state than what we saw last time. And I would have kept videoing that young bee coming out, but since the bees have been kind of restless lately, I really don't want to leave the hives open much longer than necessary. This frame is pretty heavy. They've got that built almost all the way to the bottom. They have some cap brood on there in the middle, got some larvae in there, and where they don't have any brood or larvae, they're storing up nectar. So very nice. Got some honey at the top. The rest of the cells they've got filled with nectar, and so they'll just be drying that out and capping those over. Other side, looking very nice. Got cap brood on there. Got quite a bit of cap brood. Got nectar stored up in there. Got some honey capped at the top. So these guys are doing a great job in their preparations. All right. Another heavy frame. A nice brood pattern there. Got some open cells towards the top and a few open in the middle, which they've, like on the others, they've filled those with nectar. Got nectar across the top, a couple inches of nectar at the top, got some capped honey. That's looking really good, and they've almost got this built all the way to the bottom. And again, kind of the mirror of the other side. Got Got a lot of capped brood in there. With all the bees on there, I'm not seeing if there's larvae in there. If there is, they may be covering them because they have to feed the larvae. But we got the nectar all the way around and at the top, and honey at the top, so they are looking good. Smash a hive beetle. And this is a pretty good honey frame. They're filling that all in with nectar. Got some honey capped at the top, just like we need. And on the other side, we got one lone capped brood cell right in the middle there. But other than that, this is a little pollen in there. But other than that, we've got this. They're filling this up with nectar, putting honey at the top, which they need those honey frames at the ends. So these bees obviously read the book and are following the plan. And I am, just like the other colony, I am much more, much more optimistic about their chances to get through winter than I was before. These guys are really preparing, and we'll continue to give them the resources to work on making sure that they get ready, but they're on a good track.